So I remember when Salesforce was released, I looked at it to buy it at one point in like 1999. So very, very early within its first year. It was the biggest piece of crap you ever saw in your life. I mean, it barely had enough features to even call itself a CRM with a straight face. And even in 1999, it looked like hell. And some things never change, but the deal was it had one feature, which was the fact that it was in the cloud and nothing else was. And they really understood the power of that feature. So what was happening during that time was that you had this sort of explosion in software, but the software was all server-based installs. And so what was happening with IT groups was that they were getting, a larger and larger set of server install packages that not only did they have to install and maintain both the hardware and the software, but they had to maintain all the upgrades and especially all the security upgrades. And so, by the late 90s, you started seeing companies basically call a halt to any new packages. So it would take, a senior, even in quite large companies, it would take, the very senior most leadership signing off on, a single new piece of software to be installed in the server room. And so what would happen is it became very, very hard in organizations to get software installed. And the real problem were these small to mid-sized businesses that were big enough to have an IT organization and their own server rooms, but were stretched on staff. It could take a year or more to get the company to sign off and get IT to schedule somebody to, rack a server and install this piece of software. And so Salesforce's pitch was, you don't have to even let IT know that you're buying it. You can just buy it yourself. It runs in your browser. No one even has to know. And this was the famous no software logo, the word no software in the big red circle with a slash through it. And, which was, again, brilliant marketing because highly distinctive, but it also directly communicated their core differentiation and their core value proposition. But they did not sell to the big companies because at the time, CRM was already a multi-billion-dollar market and it was completely dominated by one company, Cybele, which was later bought by Adobe. So Salesforce started out as this tiny, tiny ant among giants. And they did not try to go after the big accounts. That came, more than a decade later. But they went after it with these small to mid-sized businesses that had IT organizations that were stretched to the limit. And they made that pitch to them that you don't need to coordinate with IT to be able to get CRM software. So they would sell it directly to the sales organization. But even in those days, if you looked at those SMBs, most of them bought primarily based on whoever had the largest market share. So even then, it was not a slam dunk. But what it meant was that Salesforce could sell at a win rate that was consistently above their market share. So if they were 2% market share and they could sell at 2.5%, with a 2.5% win rate, they're gaining market share.
Yep.
And it took them 12 years to reach a dominant position. So this was not a quick win, but they slowly kept selling, slightly above their market share, taking market share. Eventually, you fast forward 12 years later, and everybody is in the cloud now. It's all SaaS software, and they have no differentiation left. But now they have a dominant market share position.